Go right ahead.
My name's Rita McCannon. I'm a lawyer in Huntsville, Alabama. My colleague is about to speak.
Good afternoon. My name is Tanya McConnell. I was a professor of history at Columbia College in Columbia, South Carolina for about 20 years, and then I decided to do something much more interesting. I became a middle school social studies teacher. Right now I'm teaching high school, but actually right now I'm getting to talk with you guys. I think I've actually been to Evergreen, Washington. Do y'all have, is there a big air and space museum out there? Do I have the right place? Maybe not.
Gentle nods.
Gentle nod. Yes. Okay. Then I think I remember stopping there for getting a donut in Evergreen, Washington at some point. So great. Delighted to be with you guys.
Hello, judges. We are a team from Evergreen Middle School, and we're going to be representing Unit 2. I'm Akarsh Bala.
I'm Aaron Berde.
I'm Surabhi Kandinya.
Hi, my name is Manya Pradeep Narayan, and it's an honor to be with you today.
Yeah, I know.
Is that all of our team? And tell us who your teacher is.
And our lovely history teacher is Ms. Kessler, who without her, we wouldn't be able to do any of this. And it was through her support that we were able to be here.
I know you don't mind hearing that at all.
I'm going to interrupt for just a second and ask a quick question. Are you guys all in different locations?
Yes, we are all in different locations right now.
You should feel free to leave yourselves unmuted. That we won't have any of the feedback issues, and then you don't have to worry about forgetting or the delay that comes with unmuting. So you guys can just unmute yourselves for the whole time. Just the students though, everybody else has to be muted except for the judges.
Adanya, I don't believe we heard your name.
I said my name's Ananya Diddy.
I missed it. I missed it.
I think it's because my mic's a bit quiet, but I'll try to speak up.
That's great. I know we've all said we're on Unit 2. We're on question 1. So I'll read it, and then we'll look forward to hearing your presentation. Alexander Hamilton said in 1780, "The Confederation itself is defective and requires to be altered. It is neither fit for war nor peace." Do you agree or disagree with Alexander Hamilton? What were the strengths and weaknesses of the Articles of Confederation? What problems, if any, did the founders face in writing the Articles of Confederation? What impact, if any, did Shays' Rebellion have on the founders' thinking about the government? What is the significance of the Northwest Ordinance of 1787? We look forward to hearing from you. You may begin.
We support Alexander Hamilton's opinion on the Articles of Confederation in that it was unfit to be the official governing document of a country. This was because of its weak central government and incapacity to enforce decisions in the states. Under the Articles, the states were more like a patchwork of independent nations rather than one united country.
To understand the failures of the Articles, one must first look at the problems the framers faced while writing the document. First and foremost, the framers were scared of creating a government reminiscent of the British monarchy, which, as the Declaration of Independence states, has a history of repeated injuries and usurpations, all having in direct object the establishment of an absolute tyranny over these states. In order to prevent a repeat of the monarchy, the framers wrote the Articles so that the central government had little power and could not control the states.
This government may have solved one problem, but it led to many others. For example, Congress could not demand tax from the states and could only ask for money. This made it difficult for America to restock its treasury and pay back international debts.
America's bankruptcy affected the general public. Rising taxation rates and a lack of money made it difficult for veterans of the Revolutionary War to pay their debts, and as such, many were stripped of their lands and thrown into jail. Furious at this treatment, veterans turned farmers, led by former soldier Daniel Shays, participated in an armed uprising against the state's courthouses. While the rebellion was put down relatively quickly, it clearly showed the inability of the Articles of Confederation to many framers and was one of the main events that caused the creation of the Constitution.
Another problem with the Articles was that Congress was given little power when regulating trade between states. As such, each state would have different currency with no standard currency, making it difficult to convert money and led to an unstable national economy. Trading internationally was difficult as well. Congress was not able to enforce trade agreements within states. Citizens would import items, then not pay the countries of origin. Consequently, many nations were unwilling to trade with the U.S., and numerous Americans lost money and jobs. Later in the Constitution, the Commerce Clause gave the power to Congress to regulate trade, which increased trust and made other nations more willing to trade with the U.S., proving that having the federal government control commerce was the better choice.
An additional problem was that state governments could ignore laws passed by Congress, who wasn't able to enforce its decisions. One example of this is shown in the treatment of the Loyalists after the Revolutionary War. One of the terms in the Treaty of Paris was that for Loyalists, Congress should earnestly recommend it to the legislatures of respective states to provide for the restitution of all estates, rights, and properties, which have been confiscated. However, many states refused to respect the treaty and did not return property taken from the Loyalists. As such, the federal government was not able to act on their promise to the British.
Though the Article's national government was clearly problematic, it was also responsible for multiple achievements, such as waging the war for independence against Great Britain and negotiating the Treaty of Paris. It also passed the Northwest Ordinance of 1787, which created a three-step process for territories in the northwestern lands to join the Union. This was significant as it established the process by which territories became states. Still, these accomplishments do not outweigh the number of problems with the Articles.
Looking at the Articles of Confederation and its effect on America, we can clearly see that it is not fit for war nor peace. While it did have some accomplishments, the problems created by the weak central government and inability to enforce decisions largely outweighed them. This concludes our testimony.
All right. I know you didn't get to go into great depth about the Northwest Ordinance, so I'm going to ask you something. Why is the Northwest Ordinance considered to be the most significant measure passed by the Confederation Congress? What important policies did it establish?
The Northwest Ordinance was very significant. The three main things that it did was A, create a process for territories to become states. B, it actually was what helped expand the America. And C, it was the first major step taken to abolish slavery.
Okay.
I want to think about the articles again and the difficulty of changing them, just in very general terms. Of which should we be most afraid? A government that is too powerful and so could threaten our freedom, or a government that is too weak to protect our freedoms? A government that's too weak to protect us, or a government that is too powerful? Of which should we be most afraid?
Frankly, both are incredibly worrying because, as shown under the Articles, a weak central government couldn't regulate states and would quickly fail, along with a too strong central government, which is exactly what the framers escaped in Great Britain. So a moderate balance must be achieved, including a system of checks and balances as we have today, like the Supreme Court declaring laws that were deemed necessary and proper unconstitutional. These are important so that a balance can be achieved and the best course of action can be taken for the nation to be not too strong or not too weak in terms of federal government.
Okay.
Yeah, so I agree with my colleague, but something that I'd like to add is I actually think that there's a very low chance of that happening in our country because America is all about freedom and individual rights. So I don't think I would see that happening in America, at least.
Okay. And I certainly hope you're right. You discussed in your presentation that they were afraid of looking British, and yet as it occurs to me, they also thought of themselves they thought of themselves their whole lives as being British subjects with the rights of Englishmen. And were there any parts of the Articles of Confederation or the Constitution that did consciously seem to look British? Did they borrow anything at all from a British constitutionalism that you can think of? And you may not, you may not be able to think of it because that may be just totally off the wall. We think about Congress and think about Parliament. How is Congress designed and how is Parliament designed?
Both were the legislative authority of the countries. And so what the framers did is no idea was entirely original. They borrowed principles from ancient Greek democracy to all the way up to what they experienced in Britain. So Congress and Parliament, the legislative branch, was one way that they established a government that had proven to at least function, if maybe not guarantee all rights, but at least function.
Exactly. Thank you very much.
Can you tell me from what you researched and studied about the Northwest Ordinance, what states were the Northwest expansion during that time? Can you tell me what those states were? If you could think along the lines of what the original colonies were. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
The Northwest Ordinance actually, well, it provided a path towards statehood, and it was in the area of the states of the territories that would become the future states of Illinois, Indiana, Michigan, Ohio, Wisconsin, and Minnesota.
Thank you. Terrific. Thank you. Anyone else?
In addition to those states that were annexed by the Northwest Ordinance directly, the Northwest Ordinance also provided for the path of action that would annex all later states. So in truth, that process was extremely useful for adding all states onto the nation in the future.
Let's bring that into the 21st century. One of the principles of the Northwest Ordinance is that we're not going to be an empire. We're not going to have some states that are states and other things that will simply govern them forever. Are there any does the United States have any territories or districts that are governed by us but not part of the United States? Do we still have places that the Northwest Ordinance might still apply to? Anything come to mind there? One of them might be the capital of the United States.
On the topic of the capital of the United States, I would like to say that I don't believe that it would fall under the category of the Northwest Ordinance. These are some areas that we rule over, but we don't involve. I believe that the capital doesn't really fit into that.
Okay, so you're gonna reject my argument there. Smart. That's certainly a legitimate thing to do. But can you, in fact, a lot of people make exactly that argument. Can you see in some ways how someone might interpret it this way? And how would that be? What would that be? What about Washington, D.C. makes it more like the unincorporated territory of Indiana compared to a state like, Virginia?
Well, Washington, D.C. isn't particularly one of the 50 states, which is why it could be considered not.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly right, which means they don't have representation in Congress and all those other things that I think they want. So I'll pass the baton back to Ms. McKinnon.
Oh, thanks. With 45 seconds left, whatever question I ask is not going to get to be answered. I think what Mr. McConnell or Dr. McConnell was after was that Washington DC is being considered for statehood. And there's a faction of the country that's pushing against that. There are an awful lot of people that work in Washington, in the restaurants, in the government buildings, in the hot dog wagons down on the street, in the dry cleaners, all those kinds of things that don't have any representation in Congress. And they don't appreciate the fact that when law enforcement needs to be called out, nobody knows who to call. When the military needs to be called out, nobody has any. So there you go. She shuts me down. So I get to start talking politics and they shut me down. But that was sort of what he was looking for, is that conversation is coming. I really, really am impressed by how much you guys know. And I understand why we have such a big crowd. These people are very proud of you and they have every reason to be. What a great, great exchange we all had. And even the hard questions, you had answers. And what I liked especially, and then I'll hush and let the others speak, is that you thought about it for a minute. You didn't burst out with something inane. You thought about it for a minute and then you answered. And you answered correctly. And I really, really enjoyed it. And I appreciate the very hard work you put into everything. Thanks.
I would agree the same thing. I would agree very much with that. You did an outstanding job. We asked some really tough questions. And we asked harder questions of you than we did some other teams, because you had shown in your initial presentation that you were willing to take on issues. I mean, this is what I do. So don't take this personally. I would challenge you on the assumption, a widely held assumption, that the Americans were trying to do anything except be British. They copied much of the Constitution and much of their thinking, and they would be totally unapologetic about it. It was coming from, they were copying British constitutionalism, because the British Constitution, beginning with Magna Carta, that was their shared legacy, and they saw that. So we have a Congress, we have the House of Representatives, which looked an awful lot like the House of Commons, of a House of Senate that looks a lot like the House of Lords, and even the idea that spending bills and tax bills began in the House, in the same way they began in the House of Commons. So they weren't afraid of looking British. They were afraid of looking foolish. They were afraid of looking like a failure, but they wanted to copy, as you said, very correctly said, they were copying from the ancient Greeks and the ancient Romans, and copying from many, many other people to do that. So your reference to Commerce Clause, to trade between the states, to your explanation of Shays' Rebellion was outstanding. Everything that I would be looking for, you hit on, and I really enjoyed our conversation. So thank you very much.
Forgive me for being like a little bit forward, I guess, but I think I would speak for all of us when we ask, is there anything in our presentation that you feel that we could have improved? Like something that we can do better next time?
I thought that personally, I thought your initial presentation was outstanding. I don't think I could. Part of it's if you could, and this may be totally off the wall, but if you could speed up the response time, and I don't know what that is. It's certainly good to stop and think, but to sometimes thinking on your feet is also an part of that. That's totally my opinion, and I'm not sure that anybody else would agree with that.
Like to disagree with my colleague. I'd rather see you think about it and then answer. I can't think of a thing I would improve. I think you're all just terrific, and I appreciated how prepared you were. If you go back and look at it and one or two of you didn't answer as frequently as the other three, those would be the kinds of things you move to improve for the future. But I didn't say correct, because you did it very, very well. And And for the age you are and the place you are so far ahead of the game. I can't even tell you. It was really, really impressive.
I would agree that your response was impressive. Your responses were outstanding.
Thank you so much. It was honestly a pleasure to present in front of you guys today.
Thank you.
It was an honor for us to be here.
Thanks, Ms. Kessler.
Okay, since you
Thank
left
you.
and came back in, Miss McCannon, I'm gonna have to. Okay,
What?
I'm gonna re-invite you. I'm gonna go ahead and.
Oh,
And
good
I'm gonna
idea.
reassign you to room 1. Okay, so our judges will be leaving shortly because they now have their invitations to return to their breakout rooms. You guys did a great job. You really did. This program is one of my first loves, and I've done this for many, many years, and that was very good work. You should be very proud of yourselves.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
And you get to see all of us again tomorrow because I'll be the same person back, except for it'll be really, really early in the morning, and we will all have sympathy for how early you guys had to get up.
Thank you. We appreciate that.
All right,
Thank you very much.
Have a great rest of your day.
Thanks.
Thank you. You too. Bye.